Hello, everybody. So before we start, I have two things that I need to confess. The first one is that I really love being here. So I think this is like the third time that I'm here in Germany, and I truly love DEVCON. For me, the opportunity to be here and meet you guys and talk to you guys, it's really a pleasure. And the second one is that I'm not a Liferay certified developer, so this hat is stolen. Yeah, but today we're going to talk about another thing. We're going to talk about WeDeploy. And basically, we're going to deep dive into what WeDeploy is, and how to build awesome applications using WeDeploy. And for many of you, you don't really know what WeDeploy is, right? You are probably wondering, what is this new thing? I don't even know what this is. Is this a Liferay related thing or not? And that's totally fine. If you go around the conference and you start asking people, what is WeDeploy? You're going to get the same reaction. Nobody really knows what WeDeploy is. So what's that? But before we go deep in what WeDeploy is, I wanted to take a step back and understand why we created WeDeploy in the first place. And we started by asking ourselves this question: how can we be more productive? And how can we be more productive in all levels? As an individual developer, how can I be more productive with my pet projects that I work on during the weekends? As a team, how can I be more productive? How can we be more productive and put something online faster? And also as a company, how can we provide more value to the market? We already have LIFERAY Portal, which is great, it's amazing, but what else can we do? What are the modern technologies out there, and how can we leverage those technologies and provide to you guys and make your lives better? So we first started with this idea of a microservices platform called Launchpad. How many of you were here last year and you heard about Launchpad? That's amazing. So this was like a prototype. This was an MVP that we put together, and we wanted to test it out with people out there. And we wanted to prove the concept of if people would want to build something on the cloud very easily and things like that. And we started with this idea. We wanted to have a platform that could help you build any kind of apps for any kind of platform. Doesn't matter what language do you use. If you like Java, that's awesome. If you like Ruby, that's awesome. If you like Python, that's awesome. We wanted to make something that was good for all developers. So we started from this. But now, after we got the feedback from all of you and we understood how the product could better serve you, we finally got a new branding, and you can now say bye to Launchpad and say hello to WeDeploy. But why WeDeploy? Why this name? We truly believe that we're living on this new era and in this society that everything is self-centric, right? It's everything about yourself. So we have products like iPhone, iTeach, iMovie, iTalk. Those are super nice. That's a very nice way of making a brand. But that doesn't happen for software, right? Nowadays, we write software in a more collaborative way. We create, we share, we build, and we deploy. And if you think about the whole journey of building a software, deploying is probably the most important part. You can spend like 2 years building some code and making all the things you want to do, but if you don't put that live in production, what's the point? So deploying is the act of putting life to that piece of code. And that's why we came up with this name. So you can go there, wedeploy.com, you can check it out and understand more about it. We put this nice website together, and then that's it. So how WeDeploy works, what is WeDeploy? So if you could just say in like 3 words, WeDeploy, like 5 words, something like that, you can say that WeDeploy is a cloud platform for developers. We want to help you build small to very complex applications in a matter of seconds, in a matter of minutes. And the reason why we're doing this is because we believe that developers, they shouldn't dedicate their time managing Linux configurations and doing all those sorts of trouble to scale their apps and building the infrastructure. We want developers to focus on what's really important. And what's really important is to build what you want to build. Is to build all this business logic that you need to build in order to have a product live. And that's why we're doing this. But how? That's the most important question. How can we make this whole thing and this whole vision to happen? Well, the first thing we wanted to do was to build some functionalities that you could reuse in your apps. So we built, for example, the ability to send emails. So that's a very common thing on any kind of application that you're building. Sometimes you need to send an email. And how does that work with WeDeploy? Let's check it out. The idea is that you can send emails asynchronously, and you can have like a very nice API to check the status of those emails. That's our goal. So let's see how you can leverage that using WeDeploy. So as a front-end developer, it's very easy for you to put something like this online. You have like this newsletter subscription screen. But when the user clicks subscribe, what's going to happen? What are we going to do when the user hits subscribe? Do we need to configure a SMTP server and think about the entire infrastructure of that, how we're going to make and send those emails in a very secure way, and how are we going to make sure that those emails are served and delivered? So how can we do that? So let's see how that works on WeDeploy. The step one is to create a project. So we can go there. We can just define some name for this project. In this case, it's going to be newsletter. So I'm defining this newsletter project, and that's it. Now I have this namespace. But it's empty. There's nothing there. Newsletter.wedeploy.io. We give you this domain, but there's nothing there. OK, so the next step is to install a service. So we have lots of services on WeDeploy, and you can go on the dashboard and choose one of them. So let's choose the WeDeploy email. OK, we're going to just give some name to this service, and that's it. Email.newsletter.wedeploy.io. That's it. OK, so now we have this service. But how can we connect this on our application? So first thing, just using JavaScript, this is one of the examples. You first import the API client. We have this file that you need to import. And now you have this sugar layer that you can start playing with it and make things much easier. And now you can finally send the email. So the API looks like this. You just define the name of the service you just created. And you have like some custom options that you can pass. For example, who sent the email? Who is going to receive this email? What's the subject? What's the body of this email? And then you send it. And that's it. That's the API. So now I can easily go back to my app, and when I type some email and I finally hit subscribe, all I need to do is call that like 5 lines of code. And when I go back to my email service, there you go. The email's over there. So it's very simple. It's very straightforward to get started. This is for emails. This demo is on GitHub. You can check that out over there. But we also think that user authentication is important. So most of the apps we build nowadays, we need to authenticate users. And sometimes we need to configure like Google authentication, GitHub authentication. There are many use cases for that. So how can we do that using WeDeploy? Let's say I want to create a Spotify clone. And I need that entire flow, signing up, login, forget password, all those things. OK, so let's go back again and create a project and a service. This one is going to be called Spotify. So I'm creating the project. I'm getting that namespace, and now I'm going to install a new service. This one is going to be the auth service, the authentication service. Now that I have this service installed, I can start playing with it. So let's see how can we play with this. I can actually go to the documentation and check it out, the API. So we have this whole documentation center that you can go into and learn more. So now I can see how can I sign out, update a user, send password reset, things like that. Okay, now I know the API. This service is installed. Let's make an example. Let's create a new user, for instance. The entire code you need is this. You need to specify the service ID, the project ID, and then the WeDeploy domain. And then you pass the options that you want to pass for the user that you are creating. You can put any kind of attribute like age, whatever you want to put, company, whatever. And now we can put this app in production. So we can add new users. So when I hit sign up, I'm going to call that piece of library that I just put it. And now I have access to the Spotify clone that we created. I can log out, calling that same API. I can see if this API is really doing the right things by creating the same user, which of course is not going to allow it. I can also try to reset my password, and then I'm going to send an email, and I can log in to this application. And in the end, since we're talking about Spotify, you can also play some music. This demo is also on GitHub. You can check that out. So that's cool. We can cover all those user authentication things. And we're trying to do everything as much as dog food as we can. So we are using the same things that we are creating. So for the dashboard itself, we're using that same API, the Auth API. So you can check that out if you log in with GitHub or any of those things. And this is the code. Pretty much what you have to do is connect to that service, connect to that project, and you can specify what provider that you want to authenticate. And then you can set different kinds of scopes for each kind of provider. For GitHub, for example, I can get your private repos, or I can get your private email. And then you define how you want to sign up. You want to sign in with redirect or with a pop-up, things like that. Okay, so we know how to send emails. We know how to authenticate users. But what about storing data? This is what everybody does. We need to store data. But not store data in an old-fashioned way. We want to store data in real time, and we want to sync the users in real time. So how can we do that? So we offer this NoSQL database that you can easily plug to your application and make complex queries, search, and consume information in real time. How to use it? So we created another clone. We created a Spotify, a WhatsApp application. So WhatsApp is pretty simple. I don't have to explain. In US, I have to explain WhatsApp because nobody uses over there. But here, everybody uses, so that's fine. It's just a messaging app. You send a message. Somebody needs to get that message in real time. Okay, let's go back again to that process. Let's create a new project and set up a new service. This project is going to be called WhatsApp. And then I'm going to the install service page, and I have all those options, and now I'm going to pick the data. And I'm just going to give some service ID. This one is going to be called data. You can put any name you want. Now we have the data service in place. Let's start playing with it. For example, when I send a message, when I hit send, I need to save that data somewhere. So I can just call this API. I connect to that path, and then I can start sending any kind of object that I want. What time the data was sent, what was the message, who sent that message, who is the sender ID, things like that. And then you have this callback, and then you do something about it. So for example, when I hit hello, and then I click send, this is being saved on the database using that API that I just showed. So now that we know how to save data, we need to also know how to read data. And we have an API for that as well. But I'm just going to show how that works inside the dashboard. Imagine you're creating like the email subscription like I just showed. You can give access to the people that are working on your project, and we have this database viewer that you can view the entire content in a table way or also on the entire source code. You can navigate between your data and pages and things like that. So that's very nice. You can actually see your data in the cloud and how everything is stored. And you can have your whole team seeing that same thing. So we know how to save data, we know how to get data, but how to sync that in real time. Pretty much the same API. Once we apply that, we can have the behavior that we want. If we have two applications, one in my phone, another one in the computer, another one in the watch, whenever I send a message, all the clients get synced, and that message is broadcasted to everybody. And that's very powerful. That's what we believe it's going to be all the applications in the future. Hitting the refresh button is something that it's not going to work anymore. This source code is also available on GitHub. You can check that out, and I highly recommend checking that out. So we created all those demos. They're really nice, and we put WeDeploy out there, and some people started to build more things on top of that. For example, Sempsa, he created a game called Liferay Lifebringer. So basically, the idea is that you can log in using Google, for example. Once you are authenticated, you can save the score from the user on the WeDeploy database, and you can start creating a leaderboard. So that's pretty nice. But where I'm going to host that game? So I have Auth, which is nice. I have data, which is nice. I have email. But you need to put this application somewhere. Well, the idea of WeDeploy is that we can cover this entire developer experience. So why not deploying full sites to WeDeploy? So static hosting, for example. Imagine you want to deliver HTML, CSS, JavaScript, images, fonts, whatever you want to deliver that it's static files. How can we use WeDeploy to achieve that? First, let's create a project. But this one is going to be different. It's going to be my own website. So I'm putting my name out there. And now I'm creating this project. This is a real project. It's running on WeDeploy. And now I'm choosing the WeDeploy hosting service. Okay, so now I have this UI.ZenoRocha.WeDeploy.io. That's pretty cool. If I go to that URL, I get this placeholder page, which is enough for me. Now I know that I can start pushing my files over there. So one thing I can do to push my files to WeDeploy, there are two ways. One is you can just put a new Git remote, and then you push to our Git server, or you can connect with GitHub. In my case, I have my whole website in a GitHub repo, so I'm just going to connect that. So I can go to deployment. I'll go to the GitHub. This is the Git server that I showed. But now I'm going to connect with GitHub. So I'm going to, I already authenticated, so it doesn't need to go that way. But now I'm showing all the users I have, all the repos I have. I'm just going to pick my repo, and then I can choose the branch as well. So now I'm choosing this branch. I'm connecting this repo. When you click Connect Repository, in the background, we're going to GitHub. We are getting all the source code that you have over there. We're sending to the WeDeploy servers. We're building out what you have over there, and we are pushing to production. Now, when I go back to that same URL, I'm going to see a different site. I'm going to see my own website. So that's pretty cool. Like in 5 minutes, 3 minutes, I don't know, I already have my website live. But there's still one problem. I don't want to use the WeDeploy domain. I want to use my own domain. So I can set up custom domains on WeDeploy. I don't want to use that URL. So I can go to settings and define another custom domain. I'm just telling that the UI is going to be the home service and then my custom domain. And that's it. Now, when I go back to the domain that I bought and that I want to use at WeDeploy, it's going to be working there. And it's live. So now my website is hosted on WeDeploy. I don't have to configure any machine, anything. It's over there. That's pretty cool. But what about Liferay? What about LIFERAY Portal? How can I launch a LIFERAY Portal? And also, how can I add power to LIFERAY Portal? So let's say you are working with LIFERAY Portal. It doesn't need to be 7 DXP. This is just one example using 7 DXP, but it doesn't need to be that version. So how can you use that? Again, let's go to the dashboard and create a new project, a new service. This one I'm going to call events. So this is the name of my project. So now that I have the events project set up, I'm going to install the Liferay service. And I'm just going to give some name, Liferay, that's fine for me. But the Liferay service is not like static hosting where I just push something and it's live in a second. I need to check. It takes some time to launch the Liferay application. So you can actually monitor logs inside WeDeploy. So I can go there and I can see if everything is already up. So I can go to my instance and filter the entire logs for my entire application. And now I can see that the server startup already happened. So when I go to this URL in the browser, I'll be able to see the Liferay application over there. And there you go. So that's awesome. But when you're working in any kind of software, it's usually not only you. You have more people to work with you. So you can actually invite collaborators. So let's say I have more people working on this Liferay project. I want them to have access to the logs, for example. You can start inviting people. They will receive an email, and then they will have access to this dashboard. You can also check activities that are going on this project, because when you start adding people, they can mess up things. So let's say somebody deleted something. You need to be able to audit those things. So now I can see who invited who created each service, and any action that is performed on the dashboard is visible to everybody. So that's important for auditing. And you can also integrate Liferay with those other services that we just showed. So why not? Remember that WhatsApp application? What if we connect WhatsApp to the Liferay portal? What if we let's log in with the test user, and let's create a very, very simple thing. Just a new web content. No big deal. And now that I want to create this new web content, I'm going to get that snippet that I showed before to read the data in real time, and I'm going to put it on this new web content. And now, if I open that WhatsApp application and I start sending new messages, I can see those new messages on the Liferay portal. And it was a very, very basic thing. I just put some lines of JavaScript and it's already there. You can make much more complex stuff using WeDeploy. So that's it. So now if somebody asks you, okay, so what is WeDeploy? You can say that WeDeploy is magic. Lots of people ask us, like, what is the product roadmap? So what's going to happen after this? So WeDeploy nowadays is a free service. It's a free thing that you can use. We put some quotas in place, but for now, since we are in alpha, we are just experimenting things. We're launching we're going to launch paid plans in the future. So this is something that it's very important, of course, but for now, everything is free. We also have some service views like data, for example, where you can see the entire database. So this is something that we've done already. But what about auth email? What about configuring the whole email template right into the dashboard? That's something we want to do. And also analytics. You should be able to see how much data you stored, how much CPU you used, how much data you transferred. There's a lot of things that we can provide in terms of analytics. And for the API clients, I showed the JavaScript API client, but what about iOS devices? What about Android? We can have APIs for Swift, for Android, for Java, Python, anything we want. And also more services. We have Node.js nowadays, we have hosting, we have Liferay, we have Ruby, we have many things. But maybe we can have a MySQL service that you can put it out there and we can scale that for you. Maybe we can launch a Jenkins application in just 1 minute and you don't need to configure anything. Maybe if you want to launch like a WordPress for your mother, you can. So whatever you want to do, and all those services that are ready, pre-made, we can put like a new box on that thing. If you want to learn more about this, please go to the keynote tomorrow, 9:20. And there's also going to be a workshop. This one is going to be very nice, very hands-on. So check that out, 11:30 a.m. Also, if you like stickers, I have some WeDeploy and Liferay stickers. So go ahead, try it now. It's already there, WeDeploy.com. After you get some beers, you can go to the hotel and you can start playing with that. And that's it. Danke. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Zeno Rocha?
Hi, can you provide more information about the technology in the background? You are using Docker, I guess?
Yes, we are using Docker.
Very nice.
But what's happening behind the scenes, we can tell to the community and everybody, but you shouldn't worry about that. We want to build a platform that it's a higher level for developers, that you don't, if it's like, it's Docker, but if it can be any kind of container technology. We're building in such a way that if tomorrow there's a new thing, a new Docker, a new Linux container technology, we can just replace that with something else.
And you are using AWS?
So WeDeploy is nowadays hosted at Los Angeles. We have like this entire server set up over there.
Okay, but if I have a German company and I want to store my data here in Germany, so...
Yes. So as I said, WeDeploy right now is in an alpha phase. So everything that we do, we are hosting ourselves. But we know that for many companies, and especially in Europe, there's a lot of regulations in terms of where the data is going to be stored. So we are completely know about that, and we have some ideas on how to fix that problem. Maybe you could like set up a service and you can pick the region that you want to host it. We can have that. Or maybe we can have like an on-premise solution. So there's a lot of options on the table and we are evaluating all that. But this is a very nice moment because we're showing to the users, and this kind of feedback, it's what's going to drive the product. So it's very nice.
Is it possible to invest money in your company?
Sorry?
Is it possible to invest money in your company? Can I buy some parts of your company?
You need to talk to Brian Chen. So like,
okay.
This is a Liferay product. So, but yeah.
Are there any more questions?
Okay. You've shown several standard services you can call. Is it also possible to define your own backend services and call them?
Yes. So for example, we have a Java service over there. And what this Java service has inside, we have a demo that it's just like a Spring Boot application that you can put it over there. It's like a very minimal thing. But we built this Java box in such a way that you can use Gradle, you can use Ant, you can use Maven, whatever you want to use for building, we already have that set up. So if you have like an application in place, something that you want to put over there, this Java box is the one that you should try it out.
Thank you for all of your questions. Everyone, please put your hands together one last time for Zeno Rocha.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.